recently had the pleasure of hosting A.I.S. Resources Chairman Martin Element for our PBA at Noon webinar. A.I.S. is listed on the TSX appropriately under the symbol A.I.S. During our webinar, CEO and President Philip Thomas was busy out in the field in Australia. In light of A.I.S.'s recent news release on the LOI to acquire the Tulane Fosterville Gold Project, we thought it would be a great time to circle back and chat with Philip. Philip, thank you so much for joining me from Down Under today.
Hi, Sophie. Yeah, it's great to be with you.
As I mentioned, you recently announced the binding LOI with Providence Gold Minerals. Can you please share with us why you felt this was an important acquisition for A.I.S.?
Certainly, yeah. Look, Providence Gold Minerals are what you call expert explorers and stakers, and they found the Four Eagles project, which is probably one of the largest gold finds since Stawell and some of the other major mines were founded. They had quite a significant amount of territory around Fosterville, which is Victoria's and I think Australia's largest gold producer at the moment. And we were very, very keen to grab the area. The main reason is because farmers were walking around and finding huge gold nuggets on their properties, and we couldn't quite figure out what was going on. Specifically, there's what they call a glacial till, which is from the glaciers in the Permian period. Went over most of the rocks. We call them turbidites from the Ordovician period, and it was very, very thin cover, and the turbidites were hosting significant gold reefs. In fact, Fosterville's reef is nearly 8 kilometres long and 20 metres wide, and 300 to 500 metres deep. So the amount of gold there is significant. I mean, it's probably, had there been more exploration in Victoria rather than Western Australia, it's possible that Victoria would be bigger than Western Australia in terms of gold finds. So when there was an opportunity to acquire it, I jumped on it straight away, and basically there's been some gravity survey work done, a bit of air core drilling work done, a magnetic survey. There's been significant work done by Dr. Rodney Boucher, who's probably the preeminent geologist in Victoria for these sorts of sediments, and he's an expert in turbidites. So when I found out that Rodney had been involved in it and had done a significant amount of work, there was a no-brainer for us to grab it. So we can accelerate this pretty quickly by removing those Permian gravels, identifying where the reefs are, and start mining the reefs. There's no native title claim on the area, so we don't have to deal with those issues. It's freehold land. The farmer who owns it is quite conducive to it, and he's had a couple of rough years, but now he's doing quite well with the rains we've had and the sheep prices. Due to COVID, we're paying a fortune for land. It's nearly the same price as gold. Everything has lined up for us, and it complements our Yalgogrin project, which is up in New South Wales, about 6 hours drive for me. And it's also a similar sort of project where there's been a lot of drilling. It's in a gold belt. There are at least 7 or 8 mines around it, and Yalgogrin is another highly indicative prospective project, because the granite contact is where the gold is, and you can see the granite contact, and it's not deep. It's 3, 5, 10, 15 metres deep, same as the Tulane project. So for both projects, they align. They're similar sorts of effort in terms of we don't have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to get them into production. Heap leaching will basically allow us to go into production, even if we use a gravity feed, and then from the gravity feed go into a cyanide or some other method of beneficiating. Plus there are 5 or 6 gold smelting and beneficiation plants around the area, because as you know, Bendigo is probably one of the biggest areas in Victoria for gold exploration and production.
Excellent. That was my next question, actually. And Can you talk a little bit about the area around your project and its significance? For example, that there is the smelters not far away and the other, let's say, properties in the area?
Yeah, sure. The big four are the A1 mine, which is privately owned, Fosterville, of course, Costa Field, which is slightly different in that an arsenic tin gold combination rather than just being straight arsenic and gold or free nuggets. Then there's Stall, which has just been reopened recently. And then there's probably 3 or 4 other mines which are on the verge of starting production. There's the old Bendigo Goldfields mine, which is also got a lot of interest at the moment. So there's probably 5 or 6. There's a processing plant at Gecko, which are a major supplier, and there's another one at Meldon, which has just been refurbished and renovated and put another 80,000 tonnes a year of capacity on. So probably within 100 kilometres, we've got 4 or 5 different options to process our gold. But having said that, it's very, very easy to dig a hole and then start processing and then backfill the hole, so you don't have a lot of waste or environmental damage and rehabilitate it within a season. So we're very lucky in that where we are, which is only 12 kilometres from Fosterville, and we expect to possibly find the same reef structure that Fosterville has, because we're between the Whitelaw Fault and the Mount Williams Fault, and those faults got spurs. In fact, if people look at our latest press release and look at the last page, there's an excellent diagram of all the little fault structures that we're sitting on top of. And while 26 square kilometres is not a lot of area per se, if you can find 3 reefs that are 20 metres wide and 8 kilometres long, you've got another Fosterville, and that's the attraction of the area, that these reefs tend to form in saddle reef structures, which is kind of an undulating structure across the top of a syncline, anticline, or in offset synclines and anticlines that have got faults through them. And we've got plenty of faults. So, and plus, I forgot to mention, we have an open cut mine at the top of the project. So we may look at restarting that open cut mine fairly soon and just use gravity separation, take the concentration of the ore down to Meldon or down to Gecko and have it processed.
Wow, that sounds very exciting. So, how do you see the company progressing within the next 12 months? What do you think the focus is going to be?
Well, I think the focus will be, we'll probably have a couple of goals that we want to achieve. One is to acquire more ground, either on our own or in a joint venture arrangement, and also start to do some more work on Yalgogrin and Tuline. And the work that we have to do now is kind of at the sharp end. It's really finalising some drilling and then basically coming up with an indicated resource, and basically getting ready for production, which will be the next phase. I guess the other alternative or the other issue that we have is whether we want to expand our holding in New South Wales, because the Yalgogrin gold belt is significant, possibly, and it's in the same Lachlan fold belt structure that Tuline is, just that one's at one end and one's at the other end. So there's some more work we could possibly do up there, but we really just want to consolidate these 2 projects, get them to the stage where we have an indicated resource statement, and we can start going through a feasibility study to basically mine and produce gold.
So, being Canadian, I'm not fully aware of what the permitting situation is in Australia. How does that work? And do you guys have permits on the property? Do you have to apply for them? Is it a quick process?
It's all online. It's fantastic. It's probably one of the best in the world, given that I've worked in Latin America and Canada and North America. It's just basically you get a login through the resource allocation and management system. You basically lodge the application, it gets reviewed, and then they come back and you get an email saying approved. So it's fairly slim in terms of the work that you have to do in terms of getting people to look at it. However, as you're aware, under COVID, everyone's working from home. There's been a gold rush in the last 12 months. So the system is a little bit behind in terms of processing, but it's basically lodging the applications. We have what they call an exploration license, and we have to convert it to a mining license. So we go from a EL to a MIN. So we have a MIN license. So we have licenses. We don't have tenement ownerships, but it's the equivalent of the Canadian system. So it's pretty straightforward. FIRB, Foreign Investment Review Board, issues only apply for mines. They don't apply for exploration licenses, so we don't have any government approvals to go through. And at the moment, if you had to buy a mine, you would probably wait 3 to 6 months to get approval. There's a bit of a backlog there.
So obviously COVID's affected all of us. How's it affected AIS's operations and exploration?
In Victoria, we're in lockdown. We've got curfew from 8 o'clock. We can't travel more than 5 kilometres. However, luckily, geologists and explorers have got a permit exemption. So I have a permit exemption. I can basically work at the exploration property. I can work at another mine that I'm involved with. So it really doesn't hamper me at all. In fact, it's great because there's hardly any traffic on the road, so I can get there faster.
True.
So, takeaway. So yeah.
Sorry. So my next question actually is on the current state of the global economy, and with the infusion of billions of dollars by government around the world. What's your opinion on the future price of gold?
Look, I think you have to sort of measure in quartiles, and I think we're in the first quartile. It may pop up to 2,300. If you look at the open interest futures position, it's absolutely massive at the moment. So there's a lot of people punting on the price going up over 2,200, 2,100. If you look at the puts, there's not many puts at 1,800 or 1,900. So the market seems to think that the price is between 1,900 and 2,100, and that's the range that I would think that the gold price would stay there. And it's kind of has its own momentum at times. So as people buy more gold, they don't want to sell it, certainly not sell it at a loss. So there's a lot of people that have probably bought in at 1,800 and 1,700 that are supporting the price because they're not sellers when it drops down to that level. So from a leverage point of view, you're much better to buy A.I.S shares than buy gold because you would have got 100% return. Whereas if you'd bought gold at 1,200, you're still looking for that 2,400. So you can see there's a lot more leverage in the share market than there is in the gold market. And I think the price earnings multiples of explorers is probably around 8 times. The price earnings of producers is around 20 times. So you're better off to buy an explorer that's about to turn into a producer than buy an existing producer because you're paying a premium on the price earnings multiple. And you probably, in Australia, we have companies with hundreds of millions of shares, whereas in Canada, it has a different perspective. But I think while there's no earnings coming in, it's kind of academic, whether you have 1 billion shares or 100 million shares. And so we've taken the view that we've sort of got half of the Aussie influence in that will probably run up to 100 million shares, which is still not too bad from a distribution of earnings. But if you look at the earnings and spread it over that number of shares, the share price still has a long way to go. And if you benchmark us against some of the others, like say Nubian Resources, who are trading at 52, 53 cents on basically 3 projects, although they have an existing, they have more projects than we have, that demonstrates the leverage that you can get in the market from where it was at 15 cents. So, 4 times multiple on your investment is not a bad return for a 3 or 4 month run. And we're going to see these runs ebb and flow. The price will come back, and then it'll go forward and come back as news announcements and milestones. That's why we've got a very aggressive milestone schedule at this stage. And as people know my background, I'm very adept at getting projects into production, and multiple projects at that stage. But this is easy for us because we've got only gold to worry about, not lithium and iron ore and nickel and cobalt. So, it's a lot more simpler approach that we're adopting, and it's drill phase, a little bit of geophysics, but it's really now identifying where to go to basically find significant amounts of gold that and the other interesting thing is that this nuggety gold gets distributed everywhere. So that's what we're really looking for, world disseminated gold. We're not looking for a thin vein, because that's a good way to lose money. So we want to basically find areas that have got good coverage of gold, and significant number of reefs, and tectonically in both areas, we're in the right spot to look.
Excellent. That's some valuable insight. So my last question, what can you say to your current shareholders who are thinking about increasing their position, as well as to potential new shareholders about building shareholder value?
Well, you should read our press releases closely, and in those releases you'll see our strategy and plans to move forward. And we're an exploration company. We don't have a gold mine per se, but that's our project objective in both locations, and possibly in joint ventures with others. And we'll use our expertise, which is significant. Dr. Boucher and various other geologists that I know, and I'm a member of the Gold Professional Interest Committee. So we'll talk about what our problems are, what our issues are, and that expertise is outside the company as well as inside the company, which a lot of people don't appreciate. So, and the Fosterville area has got a lot of geologists that have spent a lot of time trying to figure it out, and after 10 or 15 years they finally got it right. So those are the sorts of things that you look for in a company, but as with every corporation, it's the people inside and the management of the cash. And we've got a very, very low burn rate, so we're probably one of a few choices to run with if you're interested in gold exploration. So we'd encourage you to look at our share price and our press releases, and seek professional advice.
Well, thank you, Philip. It was a pleasure chatting with you. I'm glad we were able to connect, and it's a very interesting project, and we're going to definitely be watching you and bringing our PBA viewers all your news and sharing it with them. So thanks again for coming on today.
Thanks, Sophie. Great chatting.
Great. Thank you.